Good afternoon, folks, and welcome to this week's episode of the Beagle podcast. This week, we are joined by Matt Morstad, the Senior Vice President of Customer Operations at Axon. You might not know what or who Axon is, but you've heard of Taser International. That is the former name of Axon, and Matt has been involved in leading the development of multiple products for Axon, including their body cameras. And that's why I invited Matt onto this podcast to talk about body cameras and the use of body cameras and how those have evolved and will continue to evolve as new technologies emerge. Welcome, Matt.
Jonathan, how you doing? Thanks for having me. Excited.
I forgot to. I have this in the background. You can't see it. So this is a trophy. If you can see, this is the trophy. Matt is also a terrific golfer. In fact, he is a co-champion in the 2021 Couples Invitational at Forest Highlands in the Oak Flight. We won that together this past summer. It was quite the event. We hung on, I think, by a couple strokes to win that event. That was a lot of fun.
It was.
So, Matt, let's jump right into it. Tell me about Axon. Tell me about how you came to work at Axon. How did you end up joining Axon?
Yeah, that's actually a pretty interesting story. So I worked at Honeywell for about 7 years, and in fact today is my 7-year anniversary at Axon. So I've been there for a while as well. But I was I got a LinkedIn ping from somebody at Taser at the time, said, "Hey, would you be interested in this product management role with us to help kind of spur our body camera program?" And I thought, well, this is kind of interesting because the weekend prior to that, I was hanging out with some friends and met somebody there who his name is Luke Larson. He happens to be our president at this time and at Axon. And so it was his intern that reached out to me. So I got his number. I called Luke and I said, "What's going on? Why is your intern reaching out to me? I didn't know, you were interested in having me come to the company." And so it was really just a unique circumstance that they found my profile. And so that connected the dots. Ultimately, I went, he was like, "Dude, you got to get up here, come and have a coffee with me." And Luke's a great salesman as well as a great president at Axon, but he really shared a lot with me about the company, went up to the building, toured the building, talked about their mission. And I was really sold on what they were doing. They were at the time, very successful in the Taser business, and they were really just getting into the digital evidence and body camera business. And it looked like it was, had a lot of potential. And so I was excited to come and be part of that. And then, ultimately, I've had a great ride ever since joining at that time. But that's how it started for me.
Back in 2014, when you joined the company, had they launched any of their body cameras yet, or were they just in development?
Yeah, they had their first body camera out in the market, and it had a pretty reasonable success. They had their Body 1 and their Flex 1 cameras out in the market at that time, and but since then, we've scaled and grown. I think 50 times over quite a bit more than that. But I think we had 10,000 cameras in the market at that time, and now we have several 100,000 globally deployed active users on our body cameras.
You were involved in some of the different iterations of the body camera. You have an engineering background. Is that correct?
That's right. Yeah, mechanical engineering undergrad.
So how did you get involved in the actual, I should say, design or production of these newer versions of the body camera that have since come out?
Mm-hmm. Well, I was quite involved with our Axon Body 2, which was our second generation. Well, it's kind of our third generation. That's a different story, but it's our second generation camera that was really, I'd say, our body camera that really put us on the map and helped us really win the broader global market, given its features, its purpose-built outcomes, and just simplicity of its design and how it operated. So that was when I came in. We were kind of sunsetting our Generation 1 programs and building up our Generation 2 programs. So part of the experience that I feel like I was able to bring to the team working for Honeywell Aerospace, right? I learned a lot about how to build products for scale, quality, reuse, so that we could, build hundreds of thousands versus tens of thousands of something. And so we really doubled down on, design, quality, and go-to-market strategies that gave us a high confidence we would build an incredibly reliable product that worked and functioned as expected in the field, with high level of reliability over time, and could accommodate a broad user group. And so when you think about global users for body cameras, even shoot in a single state, there's a lot of different ways that they want to use it. And so building in the configurability so that you can get mass usage through configurability versus trying to find unique solutions for all of them. So I think, like, generally I brought some of those principles from my Honeywell and engineering experience and programmatic experience to the team that helped us in that regard.
So when you guys are improving on or bettering the production of these body cameras, it's my understanding that your primary customer is government agencies, municipalities, police forces that are using these cameras. Do you guys go out, and is there some sort of collaboration or effort to understand how these are functional in the marketplace, instead of just the R&D that you guys are doing internally, the work that you're doing to produce the best product possible? Is there some sort of synergy that exists between what you guys do at the point of concept and then to actual production, and the actual end user that's going to be operating this in the field?
Yeah, absolutely. We spent countless hours out with end users, officers, command staff at law enforcement agencies. We were definitely focused on law enforcement as we built out the products, but there are certainly different applications that we've also spent time with, whether it be private security or corrections, fire, EMS. We even have one of our large customers is in mining and warehouse management, right? So. But yes, when our teams still do this today in product management, a major part of their role is spending time with customers, building user stories, getting a really deep understanding of how customers use the product. So for me personally, I would go out to law enforcement agencies in different regions that had different, setups, policies, practices, and to get a wide range of how they used it. And I would do ride-alongs with the officers. I would watch how they operated through the day. We would have them use our body cameras, and we would just watch, observe, and see all the interactions. So you see some of the stuff that one might not, maybe notice or say in terms of how they use it, but there's a ton of little things in terms of how they wear it that you got to think about. Like, I remember seeing an officer constantly taking his seatbelt and putting it around. I'm like, gosh, we got to figure out a way that we can help them with mounting options to avoid this seatbelt calamity. So there's that, and then also just how they turn it on and off and interact with the camera, and how they upload it and put it into their docking station so that it securely uploads. So through that whole process, we observe a lot of ways that we can error-proof the devices, improve workflows and efficiencies for how they use it.
So let's talk about the activation component, because if I understand it correctly, some of the cameras have to be activated by the user. Is that correct?
That's right.
But there's now newer technology that you guys have or are testing in the market. And you may be way ahead of where the articles are that I read about this, but there's actual technology where some of these cameras will trigger automatically. The example I was reading, and I think a police agency in South Carolina, in Richmond, is testing this for you guys, where they're actually using this technology where if they holster or unholster their weapon, it automatically triggers the camera. That's a different product than just the one that is activated like on the chest. The officer would have to actually start and stop. Is that correct?
Well, it's let me. I can describe that. When we have an auto activation technology or platform here at Axon called Axon Signal, and we've had that in play for several years now. We started development on it when I was in the product management group in 2014, 2015. We had our vehicle integration activation module, and then we moved to a couple others. So let me describe a little bit of how it works. But our body cameras. Well, in fact, I have one here. So this is our body 3 camera, and our body cameras typically mount center mass or somewhere around here on the chest, but they double press it. And what the signal activation does is it broadcasts a Bluetooth beacon that basically the camera recognizes and authenticates and then turns on. And so it does that automatically based on different events. And so what we have today in the market is a device that integrates with your car, and that has up to 12 inputs, but we can trigger this signal protocol based on door opening, speed, crash, turning on lights, turning on sirens. So all of these events could activate the camera, and then the officer doesn't have to think about it. So, for example, if a police department wants every officer to have their camera on when they step out of the car, we can make that happen automatically, right? And then the officer doesn't have to think about it. And so it removes this this challenge of, especially under stress, running out of the car, like worrying about a camera, which is like the last thing we want an officer really worrying about or thinking about, especially in a stressful situation. So our vehicle integration is one. We also incorporated this technology into the handles of our Taser weapons. So because there's already electrical weapons there, as soon as you power on the device, should you enable that setting on your body cameras, anytime that you power up your Taser, your body camera will come on. And then subsequently, we also developed a firearm holster integration that you mentioned. It's basically a small capacitive sensor that goes on one's holster, and when you pull your firearm, it senses that basically magnetic movement and activates one's camera. And so it's a really great technology because you can enable policy-based activation of those most critical events that officers encounter in their careers.
Back to the Axon 3, the one that you have there. That's where you double tap to activate it, correct?
That's right.
Does that record in HD or is that in standard definition?
It records in HD. We have different recording levels on it, so you can get in 1080p, 4K. And so we leave that as a configurable option for agencies. Usually there's, I'm more familiar with Body 2, but Body 3 has a number of different settings in terms of video quality. And we defaulted, I think, at 1080p, but customers can increase that or take it down to standard definition. The benefits or the trade-offs there that agencies might see is a little bit with battery life, as well as how much video recording they can keep on the device before they upload the video. But generally nowadays with advancements in storage technology, that's not really a hindrance anymore. So we can get a lot of storage on our devices.
Does that capture audio as well, or just video?
Audio and video. So there is though an interesting aspect to our body cameras. We have what we call a pre-event buffer. So the camera is always recording over this pre-event buffer prior to you double clicking and starting the actual camera recording. When that happens, audio will start. But our standard default setting. Now, one can add audio to the buffer or not in our Body 3 version. But what that allows for, or the benefit of that, is sometimes you witness something happening, right, and then you hit your camera, and so being able to capture that previous 30 seconds or minute or 2 minutes, but we have a configurable buffer in there that the admin in an agency can set based on how far a pre-event buffer that they want. But that allows them to see what led up to the initiation of the recording and then what follows that recording. But yes, both audio and video.
It sounds like a lot of these different features are customizable or can be customized to the preference of the agency that's using them, whether they have their own internal policies, whether there's laws in that jurisdiction that require that. Because I imagine there's situations, and I've watched a lot of body cam footage in the work that I do, because when we're investigating auto crashes and officers respond, there's a lot of valuable information that's picked up when they're recording this, both the video and the audio portion of it. But I notice from time to time that it really depends on I guess it depends on what city you're in, what particular agencies using the cameras, because the audio will record the whole time. Others, they have an option to mute the audio. Others, they can make the video so that's hard to blur it. You can hard to see it. And other times it's just completely recorded. And I imagine from a production standpoint on your guys' side, that makes it more appealing to a larger audience, because you're not saying, look, this is how it works. Either use it the way we developed it or don't use it at all. You're saying, look, we can customize it, make it work within the confines and restrictions that you guys have as a police force. Is that kind of the idea in development?
Yeah, 100%. That was one of the challenges that we really spent a lot of time trying to figure out, was what are all of the configuration settings that we want to have on the cameras, because there's just a vast array of different needs out in the market, and some of them are unique state or local laws or regulations, or maybe union preferences. And so what we found is just the more configurability we can put into the hands of the agency, and they can administrate it themselves. And so, like you mentioned, mute. An officer can mute their camera. So if they want to have a conversation about something that is not part of the incident, or maybe they want to get sensitive information or something like that, there is that capability. But then the agency admin can disable the capability to mute if they don't want their officers to do that. So there's a lot of customization that they can build into that. So they can either restrict or provide a lot of flexibility to officers in how they use the cameras.
So you mentioned earlier, you used a term, digital evidence. I wrote this down because I like that. You talked about this world of digital evidence, and that triggers what are more commonly known in our world as chain of custody issues that you guys seem to be very well aware of, because there's a lot of literature out there about this. And that then had me go down this rabbit hole about storage. And it seems like storage is, I don't want to put words in your mouth, and I certainly don't want to create a problem if there isn't one, but it seems like storage could end up being a problem because of the vast amount of content that is being captured. And if it's being done in high definition and there's audio, those files we get, and I may get 30-minute video for an auto crash, and it is huge. And so I can't imagine the amount of storage that you all have to provide to your customers to allow them to comply with this chain of custody requirement and really collect and keep this digital evidence in a format that can be used later on. I obviously work on the civil side, but there's a big criminal component to this, where it becomes really, really important that the chain of custody be maintained and that the digital evidence be preserved for a certain period of time. How have you guys thought forward or maybe talking about this digital storage component of what you do and how to maintain all of this when storage and capacity issues seem to be apparent?
Yeah, well, that's definitely part of our challenges with navigating this over the years. ultimately what we've done is we partnered with massive cloud, providers, and we've partnered with Microsoft Azure, who's got CJIS security compliance associated also with their cloud storage that meets the needs of law enforcement. So using the cloud enables us to scale, basically. We do have some aspects of evidence and age where we're exploring ways to do cold versus hot storage and how accessible it is in certain timeframes for more archive storage versus more recent storage. But ultimately, yes, storage can be massive. Like Axon has more data in the cloud than Netflix. Right?
Holy cow! Wow.
So when you think about the content the amount of content that is out there across all of our customers, it's massive. It's petabytes of data, and it's increasing all the time. And there are different policies, state to state, et cetera, around retention limits for different types of evidence. But certainly those are things we take very seriously in our chain of custody, security of the content that we capture. All of that is incredibly important, because the last thing we want our customers dealing with is any questions about the validity of the information, etc. But again, we have a lot of customization in terms of how an agency wants to store their data. So they can take certain categories and put, either like infinite storage limits or multi-year storage limits. They can define that depending on categories or as a whole across all of their evidence. And then as data does go through a purging exercise when it comes up due for deletion, it has reminders associated with it, so the agency can have a secondary look and approval of any data that gets kind of deleted.
I've never heard the term petabyte until just now. I looked it up. That is 1 million gigabytes. Is that 1 million gigabytes? Is it petabyte?
Yeah.
That is, I didn't even know there was such a thing. As I've heard, obviously, of terabytes and gigabytes. I've never heard of a petabyte. That's how much storage. Matt, you guys are operating in a different world when you're dealing with petabytes.
Yeah, it's intense.
Well, when I was researching your company, I thought to myself, Axon's in the business of storage. They're not just the business of product design and putting these really high-end quality products in the marketplace. And I know that's really the focus, at least that's what it seems to be. Beyond just the tasers and the body cameras, there's other products you guys offer. Check out Axon at axon.com. It's really kind of cool to go. I felt like a little kid, like shopping, even though I can't buy any of that stuff, just looking at all the different stuff, the drones and things that are out there. But the storage component behind this has really, I think, got to be an issue or a internal dialogue that must be ongoing with your company. And how do we deal with that? And how do we continue to evolve as a company as it just relates to the petabytes of information that you guys are warehousing for all of your customers worldwide? Because you're a global company.
Right. Yeah. The good news is that these cloud storage providers and technology and is advancing as fast as the market is advancing, and really, like, we don't see. I would say we don't see a limitation to storage being an issue for us in even in the distant future. We think that'll really be a non-issue with technology and cloud providers that we've worked with. There's plenty of capacity, and they're increasing capacity all the time. But certainly, like, it can weigh on, like you said, sometimes data sharing. If you're going to download something, that these things can be, it can put a lot of stress on the pipelines of one's bandwidth and internet and so forth. And even one of the challenges we deal with in terms of uploading content from our secure devices to our cloud solution is getting all of that through the airways, right? Whether we're uploading it over LTE or we're uploading it through internet bandwidth, you can imagine we've got to work with agencies all the time on evaluating their infrastructure to make sure that they can get all this evidence up and down for upload and reviewing. I'd say that infrastructure and speed is probably more of a challenge than the storage itself.
That makes sense. I would think that storage can be compressed. It can be, I guess, broken up into little bits that then obviously could be connected for the end user to view. But getting it just up and down, and I know that's true for us as we'll get sometimes flash drives or CDs with some of this information on them, just to take it off of the CD itself and then upload it into our cloud-based platform can take us hours sometimes because of the size of these files. And we're not talking about petabytes. We're talking about megabytes, maybe, of data. And so I imagine that if people are using this, like let's say a police agency is using this and they have to, as a shift ends, take all of these body cameras and upload them. And then, if they want to review them later or they have to be looked at in some way, they have to be downloaded. I imagine that back and forth has got to be somewhat difficult to do in a quick way. You can do it, but no one wants to wait hours to do things. They want things to happen quickly.
Yeah. And, one of the things that can be helpful there is actually playing the video from the cloud versus downloading it and so forth. So the more ubiquitous our evidence.com platform becomes between law enforcement, prosecution, and defense, because we have licenses and versions for attorneys as well that they can use to basically get links from agencies that have an Axon file. Just share the link with you. It'll come into your evidence queue within your platform or your login, and then you can just play it natively right there in the player. You can make notes, mark it up, add it to a case, add other information, metadata, or files, whatever format that you need, and that I guess that is one way to sort of remedy the DVDs back and forth downloading files is getting kind of more people into our ecosystem.
I love that idea because that saves a huge amount of time and effort that's wasted just in the uploading, downloading process. So if you can just say, look, you can have a shared link where you have access to this particular video, you can use the video in the platform, in the cloud itself, and not ever have to take it out of the cloud. You can make your notes, like you said, mark it up, add things to it, whatever you need to do from a workability standpoint, but you don't have to actually download the file itself. Not only do you save capacity for the end user and other parties that may be interested in that video, but it can be transferred a lot quicker. And so you speed up that process. But that's a fantastic solution. Yeah. Is evidence.com, is that your storage platform, evidence.com?
It is. Yeah. It's obviously it's much more than storage. It's got case management, redaction tools, and a number of other features associated with it to manage all of the evidence. And there's administrative tools in there too to manage the evidence and the devices on their network. But yes, that's the platform. And so for anybody listening, if you want to check out our evidence.com for prosecution and defense. It's worth checking out because it's a great way to share and collaborate on your evidence.
I love that. So taking a left turn from the product design itself and the actual usage of the product and talking more about public policy. You and I have visited offline about this, and one of the questions I asked you when you were kind of telling me what you do for a living was, do you think that body cameras have increased public confidence in these police agencies? And I'm putting you on the spot a little bit, Matt, but these are your opinions, right? I'm just curious what you think, not speaking maybe even for the company, but just as you have been involved for 7 years now working with these and really talking to a lot of government agencies, police forces and police officers, and obviously just people, just citizens. Do you think there's been an increase in confidence in what we're seeing in terms of everyday policing because of the body cameras?
I absolutely do. Now, with some of the events we see in the news that are unique and they stir up a lot of controversy, I think these are, unique situations that tend to dominate the news. But on the aggregate, I would say, yes, I feel incredibly confident that our devices are building trust between policing and communities. And I'd say it's even more than that. There's direct evidence of this. I mean, the expansion of our products out in the market, the demand for our products out in the market, the demand is there because there's a value to the agencies and their communities in having products like body cameras that improve trust and transparency. And in some cases, these, there might have been a demand from the community that got law enforcement to adopt it, or vice versa. But ultimately, just that demand and the fact that we've got hundreds of thousands of body cameras globally now deployed and active every day, I think is a great sign that it is desired and working. As well, we've done a number of case studies, some by Axon, some with academics, where body cameras have been deployed, and there are unanimous results in terms of reductions in use of force, reductions in complaints, reductions in litigation and litigation expense with police departments. And so there's also been studies, of course, with behavioral patterns of both officers and civilians. When you're recording, I mean, I'm sure I'm the same way. Like when you're recording me, I'm going to be much better behaved than when you're not. So this behavior is happening. I think unfortunately we sometimes just don't focus on as many of the positives there that are happening as some of these other events in the news that are causing a lot of social unrest. And so those are certainly like real and concerning, and those are on our radar screen in terms of like how do we help go the extra distance to end this kind of conflict or help bridge this gap with technology and solutions. But we've got a ways to go yet. So,
do you feel like the officers that you've talked to now I'm taking you back to when you first joined Axon and you're out there doing some product development and you're talking to officers that are going to use these. Was there reluctance at first by officers, more generally, not one-offs, but like more generally to say, look, I don't want to have everything I do be recorded? And here's an interesting thought that I stumbled across this when I was reading articles about this last night, and I wanted to just bring this up because I'm sure you're aware of this, but I didn't think about this. The cameras that these officers are wearing are forward-facing, so they don't record the officer. They record everything the officer sees, everything the officer is interacting with. So it's not as if it's the officer being recorded themselves. It's more the officer and the interaction the officer's having with other people and other things that are being recorded. And that's an interesting dynamic because there's this thought, well, it isn't all that transparent because it's not like someone with a cell phone video where they're recording both parties interacting. It's really the officer using that body camera to record other things that they're seeing. But back to my initial question, did you experience this pushback or any sort of like, I don't like this idea of having everything I do recorded?
Yeah, for sure. In the early days, there was a lot of resistance. Big brother, you don't trust us. Like, the communities should just know that we're doing the right thing. So certainly that kind of feeling existed. But, ultimately, as we saw more and more adoption, I think just minds opened up and to the point where people are like, well, you know what? Like, I'm doing a good job and I don't have a problem putting this on and if, and getting feedback maybe from my sergeant on how I can interact differently or whatever. and this is going to help me be better. It's also going to protect me as an officer. This is something that we heard a lot more of as we got it out in the market. But initially, yes, there was some resistance about Big Brother, and I'd say there's different personas out there across law enforcement and demographics, and I'd say maybe some groups were more open to it than others, but we saw as folks would go through a trial or maybe a beta or a short-term use on it, then like we would go back at the end of a 30-day trial and say, okay, if you had the option to keep or give us the camera back, which one would you take? And I think our survey results were quite high on the fact that they wanted to keep them because they actually felt more protected as an officer, and they found that interactions with civilians were generally more positive. And so I think actually just going through the exercise of trying it and using it, it conditioned people a little bit differently and opened their minds on it. And now it's a much more sort of accepted and understood practice with officers.
It's an interesting dynamic because, as you said, if I all of a sudden had to wear a body camera as an attorney, my behavior would probably change a little bit because I'd be hyper aware of a body camera. But I think over time, as I get more comfortable with that, maybe my overall behavior or the person I am wouldn't be all that different because I would just get used to that body camera being part of my everyday life. And the example I would use is you see like these reality shows, and most of us know that they're loosely scripted, but at first it's awkward, right? To be on camera, just like on a podcast, it's awkward at first. But as you get more comfortable, you kind of forget that the cameras are there, or you just aren't as focused on the cameras, and you kind of become yourself again. And I think that's the idea. I think the idea is that, look, we want some transparency, and I think the benefits far outweigh any sort of negatives that may be out in the community about body cameras. But I think it does adjust behaviors even on the side of the citizen. And that's not a bad thing. Right? You see videos, unfortunately, of unruly passengers on airplanes, and now because everyone's got a cell phone, they can quickly just hit record, and that's their own little personal body camera is their cell phone.
Yeah.
But it does change behavior to an extent, right? And then there is the component that people are still going to be who they are, regardless of whether something's recording them or not. And I think that's okay. I think that's okay because I think it still provides a great deal of benefit in the community overall. That's what I see happening with this technology and with the adoption and the usage of this technology. What I'm interested to see is the law and the different requirements of what an agency can and cannot do, and what restrictions are in place, and what evidence should be disclosed, can be disclosed, cannot be disclosed, because that's all over the map. I was reading a lot about different jurisdictions have different requirements on what they can and won't or will share, what they won't share, what is available to the public, what's not available. I'm sure you guys deal with that every day. So it's just fascinating to see this continue to evolve and the discussion to continue to improve as it relates to the video that's being recorded, the audio that's being recorded, and the overall, I think, transparency in the marketplace, which I think has got to be exciting for you guys as you guys move forward.
Yeah.
I have a question. As an industry leader, and you guys are by far a gorilla in this industry, how do you protect yourselves against competitors that come in and try to take your technology, your intellectual property, your R&D, the things you guys spend a lot of money and a lot of time on?
Yeah, we have our own. We have a reasonably sized legal team in-house that includes IP attorneys, and then we of course work extensively with a number of third-party or outside firms on intellect. So we we take protecting our intellectual property quite seriously. We really try to file patent protection on anything and everything that is unique that falls into that category, whether it be functionality or workflows or things. So we try to do that early and often. We have hackathons and idea sessions and brainstorming things where we try to get those things out even in the really early ideation and development stages, so that we can protect those ideas over the long term. And we've done quite a bit of that. And I've been on on some of our patent applications, and so that's really how we do that. We, and I suppose there's certain aspects of our products and the designs that we, keep to ourselves. But in an industry like this, we also have to be quite transparent about how things are designed, specifically from the components that we use and how they're hardened and what our security protocols are on the devices and how the data is transferred. All of that stuff we have to be pretty, open about as well. But yeah. So that's kind of our practice, is just try to protect it as best we can through those means.
I guess one of the benefits of being an industry leader is having others try to copycat the work that you guys do. Not fun for you, not exciting for your team to work that hard and have other people try to steal it. But also, if you flip it a little bit, you can say it's a big feather in your cap that you guys have others coming for you and trying to beat a market or innovate the way you guys have continued to do.
Yeah. I mean, we definitely keep an eye on the competitive framework out there. The other thing I didn't mention in terms of our legal team is we're watching all the time for copycats, resales of our products, and we don't hesitate to go after those things, and protect ourselves, but maybe more importantly is protect our customers from a product that looks like ours but doesn't actually operate like ours with the security and the functionality that they need. And so we've seen this on Taser copies, body cam copies, other things. So we definitely are on the lookout for that. And so when we get those things reported, our legal team jumps on it and goes out, cease and assist, and all that good work.
I'm sure it keeps them quite busy. Well, Matt, before I let you go, I want to do something I like to do at the end of my podcast. It's called Fast Five. Fast Five with Matt Morstad. It is these questions that they have no rhyme or reason. I literally came up with these on this morning. So good luck. First question: have you ever been tased?
Yes, first day of work.
Is that a requirement? Do they say, "Hey, welcome to the team," and then they just tase you?
As we've gotten bigger, our hazing ritual has diminished. We used to do right after when I started, right after onboarding your first day of work, they would call for exposures in the main atrium. We got 3 levels of people that would come out from their desks and watch. It was like Mad Max of Thunderdome, and you're out there, and we do it very responsibly. Obviously, we set up mats, we got spotters, and then people have the opportunity to get tased. But we encourage people that want to experience the core product line to do it. But if one doesn't want to for whatever reason, it's their choice.
How bad is it? How does it? I mean, how bad does that feel?
It's pretty uncomfortable, but it's only 5 seconds. The law enforcement version of our product, the energy goes for 5 seconds. It feels a lot longer at the time, but it's like if you've ever touched an electrical fence, it's like kind of holding on to that for a continued pulse. But interestingly, the appreciation I got was afterwards I felt like I could get right back up. I had maybe a little bit of I don't know, adrenaline or something, but I felt like I could get right back up, and so I can understand why it can be then redeployed for compliance in some cases, and yet people can get tased and come back. It's not quite like you see in the movies where you get tased and you're passed out and you're like unconscious. This is actually not what really happens. So So I'm glad I experienced it. I'm not looking forward to doing it again, but maybe I will when we develop our next taser weapon, and I'll see what that feels like.
Well, let me know. I'm not signing up on a short list to do that at all.
Yeah.
Would you rather wear a body camera playing a round of golf or having dinner with your wife?
Oh,
I mean, Lauren is pretty funny, so I wouldn't mind watching her reactions to your reactions.
Yeah, I would say dinner with my wife. I don't think anybody wants to see some of the shots I'm going to hit, but dinner with Lauren would be interesting. I think there's language and stories and some back and forth banter that people could really find interesting. Yeah.
All right. Pineapple or pine nuts?
Pine nuts, 100%.
Oh, that was quick. You were like dialed up. I was like, how is he going to answer this question? You were like, that wasn't even a choice. You were like, easy, pine nuts.
I love nuts.
Would you rather wake up or go to sleep?
Wake up.
Okay. I thought you were going to say that. So then this is the question, which I think I know the answer. Would you rather be woken up by Jocko Willenick, who was actually your keynote speaker? I noticed he was your keynote speaker last year at your conference, or David Goggins?
Jocko, for sure. I'm a huge. I mean, these are both like amazing people. But I'm a huge Jocko fan, and people actually at Axon know this. I had been trying to get him into a keynote speaking thing for a while. I didn't wear it today, but I've got my Discipline Equals Freedom shirt that I have on, and I got to meet him. He was up here at the Scottsdale Gun Club for an event about a year ago, and really just an amazing guy, and he keynote speaker at our Accelerate conference last year.
Well, if you like Jocko, go to the Axon website. It's axon.com, and up at the top they're promoting their experience event. Is that using Accelerate?
Accelerate.
Mm-hmm. And Jocko is actually introducing the keynote speaker for this year, which I won't ruin for you because it's actually a fun video to watch. I got motivated listening to him talk about who was going to speak at this year's event. He's quite the character. All right, last question. If you could be professionally sponsored, would you rather be sponsored by printer paper or by a garden hose?
A garden hose. I just feel like there's more creative stuff I could do with that. Yeah.
What can you do with a garden hose?
I don't know. I think I could come up with some pretty good like endorsement commercials and activity on that. Yeah.
I want to see those. Please put those together for me so I can debut those on our podcast.
Okay. Yeah. I don't know if they're. I don't know.
They may not be appropriate. Let's leave it there. Matt Morstad, thank you so much for being on the Legal Beagle podcast. It was a delight to chat with you. It was great learning more about what you guys do at Axon and how you guys are doing your best to create just incredible products that I think people will become more accustomed to seeing in the marketplace as more agencies adopt these products. And like you said, it's not just police agencies. There's a whole line of other customers that are using these products. And it's fun. Like I said, I would encourage any of our listeners to go on to the Axon website just to check out all their product lines. It's amazing the stuff that you guys are developing. But Matt, thank you so much for coming on.
Yeah, thank you. I enjoyed it. And appreciate you having me on.